All right, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about one of the most powerful ways of thinking you can possibly learn. And it all kicks off with a really strange story. A story about something that wasn't there. The missing bullet holes.
So picture this. You're the one in charge of making this call. It is literally a life-or-death puzzle. See, every single piece of armor you add makes the plane heavier, which means it's slower and burns more fuel. You can't just cover the whole thing. You've got to be smart about it. So what do? Where do you put the armor?
And this wasn't just some thought experiment. For the Allied forces during World War II, this was a brutal daily reality. Every plane that didn't make it back was a tragedy, not just for the machine, but for the highly trained crew inside. Figuring this out was an absolute top priority. So let's take a look at how they first tried to crack this incredibly high-stakes problem. And the approach they took seemed perfectly logical at the time.
Their thinking was pretty straightforward. If you want to find out where a plane is most vulnerable, well, you should look at the planes that got shot up but still managed to fly home. So that's what they did. They decided to collect data from the survivors.
And so they did. They gathered all this data, painstakingly mapping out every single bullet hole, every bit of shrapnel damage on the planes that, limped back to base. And when they put it all together, a really, really clear pattern started to show up. Just look at this. The data was, well, it was crystal clear. The wings, the main body of the plane, the tail, these parts were consistently getting riddled with holes. But the cockpit, where the pilot sits, and the engines, almost no damage. Surprisingly few hits.
So the conclusion seems pretty obvious, doesn't it? If the wings and the fuselage are getting hit the most, then that must be where the planes are weakest. So you should add the armor right there. And that was the initial recommendation. But it was completely disastrously wrong.
And this is where our hero steps into the story. A statistician by the name of Abraham Wald. He was part of this brilliant team at Columbia University, tasked with helping the war effort. And when he looked at the exact same data, he saw something totally different.
And this isn't just a fun story. It's all documented history. What you're looking at here is the actual cover of the declassified report from Wald's work. This guy wasn't just taking a wild guess. He was using some serious math to see what everybody else was missing.
Wald's insight just turned the entire problem completely on its head. He told the military that the armor should go precisely where the bullet holes weren't, on the engines and on the cockpit. Now, this must have sounded absolutely insane to them at first, but his logic, well, it was perfect.
You see, Wald's stroke of genius was realizing that the military had only been looking at the planes that survived. The data they had was incomplete. The question he asked was the one that changed everything. What about the planes that didn't come back?
This massive logical error actually has a name. It's called survivorship bias. It's this sneaky tendency we all have to focus on the winners, on the survivors, on the success stories. And when we do that, we completely miss the critical lessons hidden in all the failures.
And this right here is what makes it all click. Those bullet holes all over the wings and fuselage, they weren't a sign of weakness. They were actually a sign of strength. They showed exactly where a plane could get shot and still make it home. The absence of bullet holes on the engines and the cockpit, that was the real data. That was the warning sign. Any plane that took a hit there, well, it was lost. It never came back to be part of the study.
And hey, this wasn't just a theory. Wald was working with real, hard numbers. This table, which is based on an example from his actual paper, shows the kind of thing he was looking at. He could see that, yeah, lots of planes were coming back with hits, but the real story, the genius of his work, was in mathematically figuring out the story of the planes that didn't return. Okay, so this is a super fascinating story from World War II, but why does it matter to us right here, right now? Well, it matters because survivorship bias is absolutely everywhere, and it can quietly trick us into making really bad decisions in our own lives. Seriously, think about it. In business, we idolize these giants like Apple and Google, but we totally forget about the massive graveyard of failed startups that took the exact same risks. We listen to advice from lottery winners or that one successful founder, but we never hear from the thousands who tried the same thing and failed. It's why we think old things were built to last. We're only seeing the few that survived. In every one of these cases, we're making judgments based on an incomplete picture.
So here it is, the big takeaway. The most crucial point is this. We have to train ourselves to look for the missing bullet holes. We have to start asking, okay, what am I not seeing here? Who isn't in this data set? Which stories aren't being told? Because the most important information is often completely silent. And that really brings us to the final question, the one for you to think about. Whether you're making a big career move, or starting a new project, or even just forming an opinion on something, always ask yourself, what are the bullet holes I can't see? What's the hidden data that could change my entire perspective?